What if I told you that during one of Michael Jackson's most triumphant performances, a woman stood up in the VIP section and began mocking him so cruelly that 80,000 fans fell silent in shock? Security was ready to remove her immediately. The crowd was booing. Michael had every right to have her thrown out and humiliated in front of the world. But what the king of pop did instead was so unexpected, so profoundly compassionate, that it transformed a moment of public cruelty into a masterclass in human grace that left an entire stadium in tears. This wasn't just handling a heckler. This was a moment that proved true strength isn't about defending yourself against attacks. It's about choosing love even when you're being torn down in front of thousands of people. September 15th, 1991. The Forum in Los Angeles was electric with anticipation as Michael Jackson took the stage for what many would later call one of the greatest concerts of his Dangerous World Tour. 80,000 fans had packed the venue, and the energy was absolutely incredible. Michael was in perfect form, every dance move precise, every note flawless. Everything was going exactly as planned. But during the tender, vulnerable moment of human nature, something shocking happened that would test Michael's character in the most public way possible. Her name was Rebecca Martinez, and she was everything that represented the cynical, image-obsessed side of Hollywood in 1991. A 35-year-old entertainment industry executive who had built her reputation on sharp-tongued criticism and brutal honesty about celebrities, Rebecca prided herself on saying what others were thinking but were too polite to express. Rebecca hadn't come to the Forum as a fan. Her VIP tickets had been provided by her talent agency, and she'd spent the evening making cutting remarks to her companions about the production, the audience, and Michael's performance. "This is all so manufactured," Rebecca had been saying throughout the show to anyone who would listen. "Look at these people worshiping someone who's clearly lost touch with reality. The whole thing is ridiculous." Her companions, growing increasingly uncomfortable with her loud commentary, tried to quiet her down. But Rebecca, emboldened by alcohol and her own sense of superiority, was building towards something that would shock everyone around her. The moment came during Human Nature when Michael moved to the front of the stage for the song's intimate acoustic section. This was traditionally Michael's most vulnerable performance moment, when he connected emotionally with the audience through gentle, introspective music about understanding human behavior and finding connection despite our differences. As Michael began singing about the complexity of human nature and the desire for authentic connection, Rebecca saw what she considered the perfect opportunity to express her disdain. Standing up in her VIP section, Rebecca began speaking loudly enough for people around her to hear. "Look at him, trying to be so deep and meaningful. It's all an act. He's performing vulnerability like it's just another dance move." Her voice carried further than she initially intended, and people in nearby sections began turning to look at her with confusion and growing disapproval. But instead of being embarrassed, Rebecca became more emboldened. "This whole sensitive artist thing is such a joke," she continued, her voice getting louder and more mocking. "He's trying so hard to be profound, but he's just a dancer who got famous as a kid and never learned how to be a real person." Rebecca's criticism became more personal and cruel as she warmed to her topic. She began mimicking Michael's mannerisms, his speaking voice, and his performance style in ways that were clearly intended to ridicule and demean. Her behavior was so inappropriate that people throughout her section were becoming visibly uncomfortable. "Ma'am, you need to keep it down," said a security guard who had been called over by other VIP guests who were appalled by Rebecca's behavior. But Rebecca was beyond caring about social norms or other people's comfort. "Why? Because we're supposed to pretend this is art? Because we're supposed to act like this manufactured emotion is something meaningful?" Rebecca's voice had now carried far enough that people in the general admissions sections were becoming aware of the disruption. More importantly, her mocking commentary was loud enough and persistent enough that it was beginning to interfere with Michael's performance and the experience of thousands of other concert attendees. Security personnel were preparing to remove Rebecca from the venue when something unexpected happened. Michael himself had become aware of the disturbance. Instead of continuing with his planned performance or allowing security to handle the situation quietly, he made a choice that would surprise everyone present. He stopped singing mid-verse and addressed the situation directly. proving that he had not only heard Rebecca's cruel mockery, but was prepared to respond to it in front of 80,000 people. As Michael Jackson stood at the front of the forum stage, having just stopped his performance of Human Nature mid-verse, 80,000 people fell into confused silence. The interruption was so unexpected that it took the audience several moments to understand that something significant was happening beyond the planned show. Michael walked closer to the area where Rebecca Martinez was standing and spoke into his wireless microphone, his voice calm but clearly audible throughout the venue. "Ma'am, I can hear you commenting on my performance, and I want you to know that's okay. Everyone has the right to their opinion." Rebecca, suddenly realizing that she had Michael Jackson's direct attention and that of 80,000 other people, felt a mixture of embarrassment and defiance. Instead of backing down or apologizing, she doubled down on her criticism. "I'm just saying what everyone's thinking," Rebecca called back, her voice now carrying clearly through the stadium. "This whole sensitive, vulnerable artist thing is just an act." The crowd's reaction was immediate and hostile. Fans began booing Rebecca loudly, calling for security to remove her, and expressing their displeasure with her disruption of their evening. But Michael raised his hand, signaling for the crowd to quiet down. "Please, everyone, let her speak," Michael said gently. "She has something she wants to say, and maybe we should listen." This response was so unexpected that it caught everyone off guard, including Rebecca herself. She had prepared for anger, for defensive retaliation, for being thrown out of the venue, but not for this kind of patient, respectful attention to her criticism. "Ma'am, you said this is all an act," Michael continued, his voice remaining calm and non-defensive. "Can I ask you something? What would you consider to be authentic emotion? What would real vulnerability look like to you?" Rebecca was clearly not prepared for this kind of thoughtful engagement with her criticism. She had expected to provoke anger or defensiveness, not genuine curiosity about her perspective. I just think you're performing emotions instead of feeling them," Rebecca stammered, her earlier confidence beginning to waver under Michael's gentle but direct questioning. "I understand," Michael nodded thoughtfully. "That's a fair concern. Can I share something with you that might help you understand where these songs come from?" Without waiting for Rebecca's response, Michael began speaking with a level of personal honesty that surprised everyone present, including his own band and crew. "The song I was just singing is called Human Nature, and I wrote it during a very difficult time in my life when I was struggling to understand why people sometimes treat each other with cruelty instead of kindness," Michael said, his voice becoming more personal and intimate despite the massive audience. "You see, ma'am, I've spent my entire life being criticized, analyzed, and judged by people who don't know me personally. I've been called artificial, weird, manufactured, all the things you just called me tonight. And for a long time, that criticism made me angry and defensive." Michael paused, allowing his words to sink in throughout the silent stadium. "But then I realized something important. Usually when people are quick to criticize or mock others, it's because they're dealing with their own pain or insecurity. They're projecting their own struggles onto someone else because it's easier than looking at their own lives honestly." The gentleness in Michael's voice was unmistakable, and Rebecca was beginning to look visibly uncomfortable as she realized that Michael was not attacking her back, but was instead offering her compassion and understanding. "Ma'am, I don't know what's happening in your life that makes you feel the need to mock someone who's trying to share something personal with 80,000 people. But I want you to know that whatever pain you're carrying, whatever makes you feel like you need to tear others down, I understand it and I forgive you for it." What happened next at the forum was unlike anything anyone in attendance had ever experienced at a concert. Michael Jackson's gentle, compassionate response to Rebecca Martinez's mockery had created an atmosphere of profound emotional honesty that transformed the entire venue from a place of entertainment into something approaching a sacred space of human connection. Rebecca, who had started the evening as a confident critic, ready to tear down what she saw as artificial emotion, found herself completely disarmed by Michael's refusal to respond to her attacks with counterattacks. His patient, understanding approach had stripped away her defenses and left her confronting the reality of her own behavior and motivations. I wasn't trying to hurt you personally," Rebecca said, her voice now much quieter and lacking its earlier confidence. I just, I get tired of what seems fake in this industry. Michael nodded with genuine understanding. I know exactly what you mean. This industry can make everything feel manufactured and insincere. But ma'am, can I tell you what I've learned about authenticity? Rebecca nodded, now genuinely curious rather than defensively critical. Real authenticity isn't about being perfect or never making mistakes, Michael said, his voice carrying clearly through the hushed stadium. It's about being honest about your struggles, admitting when you're wrong, and choosing to respond to criticism with grace instead of anger. Michael walked closer to where Rebecca was standing, his movement emphasizing the personal nature of their conversation, despite the massive audience. You called my emotions an act. But let me share something real with you right now, in this moment. I'm feeling genuinely hurt by your words. They stung because they touched on insecurities I've carried my whole life about whether people see the real me or just a performance. The honesty in Michael's admission was stunning to everyone present. Here was one of the world's most famous entertainers acknowledging his vulnerability and pain in front of 80,000 people. But you know what else I'm feeling right now? Michael continued. Compassion for you, because I recognize that people usually attack others when they're struggling with something themselves. And I'm also feeling grateful because you've given me an opportunity to practice what I preach about, responding to criticism with love instead of defensiveness. Rebecca was visibly emotional now, tears beginning to form in her eyes as she processed the profound grace with which Michael was treating her despite her cruel behavior. I'm sorry, Rebecca said, her voice cracking with genuine emotion. You're right. I've been going through a difficult time in my personal life, and I guess I've been taking my anger out on people who don't deserve it. I was wrong to attack you like that. Michael's response was immediate and heartfelt. Ma'am, thank you for that apology, but more importantly, thank you for your honesty about what's really going on in your life. That took real courage. Michael then turned to address the entire stadium. Ladies and gentlemen, what just happened here is more real and more meaningful than any song I could perform tonight. This woman just demonstrated something beautiful, the courage to admit when we're wrong and the strength to apologize when we've hurt someone. The crowd's response was extraordinary. Instead of the continued booing and hostility that Rebecca had been receiving, 80,000 people began applauding, not for Michael's performance, but for the grace and forgiveness they had just witnessed between two people who had found their way from conflict to understanding. Ma'am, would you like to stay for the rest of the show? Michael asked Rebecca. Not as someone who's here to criticize, but as someone who's welcome to be part of this community of people who are all trying to figure out what it means to be human. Rebecca nodded through her tears, and Michael smiled with genuine warmth. Then let's finish this song together, because that's what it's really about. Understanding that we're all struggling with human nature, and we're all worthy of compassion. The aftermath of Michael Jackson's gentle response to Rebecca Martinez's mockery at the Forum created waves of change that extended far beyond that September evening, demonstrating how choosing grace over retaliation can transform not only individual hearts, but entire communities and cultures. Rebecca herself was immediately and profoundly changed by the experience. The woman who had arrived at the concert ready to mock and criticize left as someone who had experienced the power of unconditional forgiveness and grace. In the weeks following the concert, Rebecca sought therapy to address the pain and anger that had been driving her destructive behavior. That night changed my entire approach to how I interact with people, Rebecca later shared in an interview with a conflict resolution magazine. Michael showed me that responding to criticism with curiosity and compassion is infinitely more powerful than responding with defensiveness or counterattacks. Rebecca's transformation was so complete that she eventually left her position in entertainment criticism and began working as a mediator specialist, helping others learn to respond to difficult situations with the same grace Michael had shown her. Michael's handling of the situation also had a profound impact on how his security team and management approached similar incidents in future concerts. Rather than immediately removing disruptive individuals, they were trained to look for opportunities to turn conflict into connection, understanding that sometimes the people causing problems were actually those most in need of compassion. After that night in Los Angeles, Michael's approach to criticism completely changed. observed his longtime friend Diana Ross. He had discovered that his greatest strength wasn't his ability to perform, but his ability to transform hostility into healing through patient understanding. The story of that evening spread throughout the entertainment industry as an example of how public figures could handle criticism and public attacks with dignity and grace. Other celebrities began adopting similar approaches to difficult interactions with media and fans, leading to a gradual shift in how conflicts were handled in public settings. Child psychologists and educators began using the forum incident as a teaching tool for helping young people learn to respond to bullying and criticism constructively. The video footage of Michael's interaction with Rebecca became a standard resource in programs teaching emotional intelligence and conflict resolution. Michael demonstrated in real time how to de-escalate hostility through empathy and understanding, noted Dr. Patricia Williams, a psychologist who specializes in conflict resolution. His approach showed that you don't have to accept abusive behavior, but you can respond to it in ways that promote healing rather than escalation. Rebecca maintained correspondence with Michael for years after the concert, and their interaction evolved into a genuine friendship based on mutual respect and understanding. She often spoke about how his grace in that moment had not only changed her behavior, but had inspired her to approach all of her relationships with greater empathy and patience. The Michael Jackson Foundation for Human Understanding, established posthumously by his estate, specifically references the forum incident as inspiration for its mission to teach people how to transform disagreement and criticism into opportunities for greater understanding and connection. When Michael died in 2009, Rebecca was among those who spoke at memorial services, sharing how his response to her cruelty had taught her about the transformative power of choosing love over retaliation, understanding over judgment, and grace over revenge. Michael could have destroyed me that night in front of 80,000 people, Rebecca said in her tribute. Instead, he chose to heal me. That choice didn't just change my life. It taught everyone present that night what real strength looks like. Real strength isn't about winning fights or defending yourself. It's about having the courage to respond to cruelty with kindness, even when you don't have to. The legacy of that evening proved that sometimes our most difficult critics can become our greatest teachers, and that choosing grace in moments of attack can create ripples of positive change that extend far beyond the original conflict. This story reminds us that our greatest moments often come not when we're being praised, but when we're being criticized. Michael Jackson could have destroyed Rebecca that night, but instead he chose to understand her pain and respond with grace. He showed us that true strength isn't about defending ourselves against attacks. It's about choosing compassion even when we're being hurt. How do you respond when people mock or criticize you? Can you look beyond their words to see the pain that might be driving their behavior? What would change in our relationships if we all chose curiosity over defensiveness? If this incredible story of grace and transformation moved you, please hit that like button right now and share this video with someone who needs to hear about the power of choosing love over retaliation. Your share could be exactly what someone needs to see today to change how they handle criticism forever. Subscribe and ring that notification bell because we have more amazing untold stories that prove kindness conquers cruelty, understanding defeats judgment, and grace transforms everything it touches. These are the stories the media never told you about Michael Jackson, the man who quietly changed hearts when nobody was watching. What's your story? Have you ever witnessed someone respond to cruelty with kindness like Michael did? Tell us in the comments below. Your experience might inspire thousands of other viewers to choose compassion over conflict. Remember, the gentlest responses often create the most powerful changes. Sometimes the most transformative thing we can do is respond to cruelty with kindness, to attacks with understanding, and to mockery with love.